Starting, all attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, calling to order Historic Landmarks Commission, August 19th, 2020. Start with our roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Heidi Rydell. Begin the roll call. Chair Grumbine.
Here.
Vice Chair House.
Here.
Commissioner Drury.
Here.
Commissioner Edmonds. Absent. Commissioner Lenvik.
Here.
Commissioner Mahan. Commissioner Mahan, I believe you're muted.
Commissioner Mahan, I just sent you an unmute request. Here we go. It looks like your audio is on. If you could just confirm.
Here, let's see.
Here we go. Now we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
There I am.
All right.
I disappeared for a while. I don't know what happened.
I assume you went to Iowa State and that was a problem.
What?
Here.
Commissioner Woolley, thank you. And Commissioner Vena, absent. Thank you.
All right. So we'll start our meeting with public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within its jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, if you wish to speak on items not on the agenda, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon and I will call on you and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. And I do not see anyone at this time. And I'll just ask Ms. Plummer if we received any written correspondence.
No, Ellen, we did not receive any general public comment.
All right. So now we'll move on to item B, approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of August 5th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Is that Uli? I heard Uli, and then who was this? The first second?
Maybe
Maybe it was me.
Yeah. Okay. We'll call it Drury.
All right.
So
I'll get you,
Right.
Sonny.
we'll give him this one just because he doesn't have video.
Yeah.
All right. So under discussion, edits. Commissioner Lenvik, did you have any? Or are you just being a good citizen,
No, I
Commissioner?
have nothing. I will turn my camera off if you want.
I think I think you're doing the right thing. I think and actually maybe Heidi or Ellen could remind us of what our best practices are for cameras.
Yes, thank you for asking. So just as a reminder, it is helpful during public comment for everyone to have their webcams on, just to be present for that. And then for these preliminary matters to also have your cameras on, because it makes it easier for the chair to know who's made a motion, who's seconded the motion, so we can kind of match the voices to the cameras. And then of course, for the rest of the questions and deliberation as you normally do. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so edit.
Mr. Chair, I have none.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Mahan?
Yes, I don't have an edit, but I do have a question on page 7 of 7, item 4. The commission is mostly concerned with the 3.0 docks, but the applicant should consider changes to the 1.0 kiosk. What does that mean, the 3.0 dock and the 1.0 kiosk? What do those numbers mean? Is that feet or what is it?
I think that was the description from the applicant of the docking station and then versus the kiosk, but I think they called them that. I'm just going from memory, but it was what the bike that you had a multi-bike dock station and then you had the kiosk. Was that right? Ms.
I
Bond?
think that's correct.
That's correct, Chair Grumbine.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
With the version.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions or comments or changes to the minutes? Okay. In that case, we'll do a roll call and vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will begin the roll call for the approval of the minutes. Commissioner Drury,
Did you say Commissioner Drury?
yes.
Hello?
Yeah.
That's your name, isn't
I'm
it?
here.
For a minute, I thought I got it wrong. Commissioner Lenvik,
Yes.
It looked like he said yes.
Vice Chair House,
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan,
Yes,
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So our next item is approval of the consent calendar for August 19th, 2020. Ms. Plummer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item A, 1603 Laguna Street received project design approval and final approval. And item B, 433 East Cabrillo Boulevard received final approval. All items today were reviewed by Commissioner Mahan.
Move to approve the
All right.
consent calendar.
All right. Motion to approve. Second by Commissioner House. Motion by Commissioner Uli. All right. Under discussion. Any discussion? Oh, actually, I did want to make point out one thing and thank the applicant, or at least go on the record, for thanking the applicant for changing the cover image on their packet, because it was a very dead Revit model drawing before, and the nice rendering is back now. So I did notice that. So anyways, a little thank you to the
They brought that up at the consent meeting.
Did they?
Yeah,
That's
they're
great.
like, we're very appreciative, and we changed out the picture.
Good.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Mahan.
yeah, the one item that was discussed, Commissioner Vena asked that the trees in the entry drive be changed to sycamores. The applicant was not, didn't particularly want to do that. But I told him that we had lost, through sickness, we had lost Commissioner Vena a couple of weeks ago, and that I was going to honor his desire to have those trees be sycamores. They may bring that back eventually when we have a new landscape architect on our commission, but for now, they are sycamores.
All right, thank you for that update, and thank you for sticking with Commissioner Vena's last change in terms of the drawings.
I also thank them profusely for how they cooperated and worked with the commission, and that we all thought this was going to be an outstanding project.
Great, wonderful. All right. So with that, any other questions or comments? All right, in which case, let's do a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll begin the roll call vote. Commissioner Lenvik,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
Commissioner Mahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Jury,
Aye.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so now let's go on to announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's just one announcement from the design review supervisor, Irma Unzueta.
All right.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I just wanted to, as you all know, I just wanted to indicate for the record that Commissioner Julio Vena has decided to step down from the Historic Landmarks Commission due to health issues. And I wanted to take this opportunity to thank him publicly and express our gratitude for his service to our community. With his contributions on this commission, you know, we have a beautiful city, and I wanted to make sure that got on the record. And you know, we're going to miss him, but we wish him well, and hopefully, you know, we'll be seeing him around the city. Chair Grumbine, were you going to read something into the record? You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yes. So, okay. So I wanted to. Sorry, I've got to pull up the our resolution of recognition. This is a resolution of recognition for Julio Vena, landscape architect. Whereas Julio Vena spent years making contributions to Santa Barbara as a landscape architect, and whereas Julio Vena served with talent, dedication, and knowledge on the City of Santa Barbara's Historic Landmarks Commission since 2015, and whereas Julio Vena consistently showed his care for the beauty of the city by applying quality design standards to the treasured landscape of Santa Barbara, now, therefore, be it resolved that official recognition on behalf of the City of Santa Barbara Historic Landmarks Commission is given to Julio Vena, landscape architect, for his outstanding contribution to our community and the City of Santa Barbara. And in witness thereof, I hereunto, yeah. So we'll have the actual document signed and sent to him. And yes, we want to thank him for his extraordinary service for so many years, for part of the reason why we have such a beautiful city. So
Thank you, Julio.
Thank you, Julio.
thank you very
Mr.
much.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Drury.
I spoke with Commissioner Vena a good bit this week, and he assured me that he wouldn't let me rest if I made mistakes at the Delegara Plaza revitalization. I said I would welcome that. He sounded really good. He said he's got some underlying health issues as well, but he said he regrets having to leave the commission. But he sounds really, really good, and I'm going to go visit him down on Nopal. So anyway, he's
Great.
he's a very dear and honorable man. I'll miss him.
Yes,
Yeah.
I totally agree, and yeah, I'm sure we're all going to miss him here on this commission.
Yeah.
He can call in and throw in his 2 cents if he sees us out of line.
Yeah.
All right. Any other? Okay. So then, any other comments or additional things that want to be said on the Julio subject, and otherwise we'll move on to the other announcements. Commissioner Lenvick.
Yes, Chair. I was wondering how we intend to handle landscape items without any landscape architect on the commission. Are we going to just exist until a new appointment in the first of the year, or are we going to, or will council move ahead quicker on that possibly?
Garden book. I can lend a hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to Commissioner Lenvick. I'll let the design review supervisor speak in a little bit more detail to that, but we will be accepting applications, obviously, for an official landscape architect to join the commission at a future date. And in the interim, I'll let the design review supervisor respond to that.
Isn't that?
Yes, thank you so much. So I understand that Commissioner Vena did have, the forethought to check in with Bob Cunningham that serves on the ABR to ask if he would be willing to take on the consent calendar at least, which he has indicated that he is willing to do that. We have had to reach out to the city attorney's office just to make sure that that is something that we can do. I think we've done it in the past, not sure if we actually did it I don't want to say legally, but appropriately. But so she's checking into that, and if it's okay, he will at least serve on the consent calendar. And in the meantime, recruitments are going to begin for advisory group members for appointments in December. So it may very well be that we won't have anyone, at least on the full commission. However, the city attorney's office, I don't think that Bob had indicated whether he would be willing to serve on the full commission. So we need to reach out to him in the event the city attorney's office gives us the green light. So we're working on it.
Great, thank you. And in the meantime, we'll just go by the motto WWJD. What would Julio do? All right, so announcements. Oh, I did want to add one additional announcement. So you'll all be receiving an email about this, but there's the AIA charrette. They're doing a second charrette. They had done the first one, whatever it was, 3 years ago for the State Street charrette. There is underway. The second one is, I think there's like 16 teams. There's a lot of very good local architects, landscape architects, engineers, and others that are involved, as well as, I believe Commissioner Uli, are you involved as well?
I am.
Okay. And I know there's some other I think there's an ABR member. And there's a lot of the community involved with it. It's happening over a couple months because of COVID instead of a charrette of a Saturday, which they had done before. I had been involved with it before. I'm not involved with it, or I'm not participating in it, or really involved with setting it up this time. But I was talking with Irma and others about it, and the AIA thought it would be a great idea to have actually sort of a cut across SFDB, ABR, and HLC members that want to volunteer to be a sort of in progress helpful review, and just sort of more like what we do when for schools where we're we're not the review body, but we're at least giving some helpful hints and tips and some feedback along the way. And so for those of you who are interested, there's going to be an email. Tava has said that we're okay. It's being sort of split up, and there won't be Brown Act issues. And so we can sort of divide into groups of mini review groups and teams, and then review that. There are going to be 2 points of review over the next month and a half. I think there's one. I believe the first one's going to be on Monday, and the second one's like a month after that. So it wouldn't be a big time commitment, but it would be, I think, very helpful for the different teams to get some feedback along the way for any of you who want to participate in that way. So it's a pretty big and impressive effort, and there's a lot of people involved. So I think this would be a great way of review board members being able to help them along the way. So and most of the sites are, so we would be divided. We wouldn't there'd be like 1 or 2 HLC commissioners on each group depending on who volunteered. So if you're interested, you'll see an email come out the next day or two about it, and just respond to that, and the teams will get divided up, and we'll be able to help them that way. So and then so any other let's see, requests, future agenda items and appeals, anything else?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Drury.
I have to leave by 5:40.
All right, we'll keep the charge up. See.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so if not anything else announcements wise, we'll move on to subcommittee reports. Any subcommittee reports? Okay. All right, in that case, we are done with our general business, and let's go to item 1, structure of merit designation. The commission is requested to review staff reports and hold a public hearing to consider a structure of merit designation of the following historic resources. And there is a list, and well, I'll let Ms. Hernandez kind of give us a run through of how she wants this to go.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine and Commissioners. Because we have so many items today for designation and structure of merit, I did group them so that you can make one motion for each grouping. So sort of how we have done it for the mass designations, and I have one slide per project, and then we can bring up any concerns and questions and edit the motion if there's something you want to exclude. But just because there's so many in the roll calls and motions take so long in order to, especially in the virtual realm that we're in, we thought this would be the most efficient way to get through them and keep it more about the projects and not about the roll call. Sort of. So there we go. So I can run through the first item, and then you can call for public comment, and people can talk about the projects if they want, or you can ask them questions. I believe most of the owners are in the attendees list as well.
Okay, great.
Okay, so next slide to me. So the first item we have are 3 structure merit designations. And the first one is 414 Plaza Rubio. This building was constructed in 1926, designed by Mary Craig in the Spanish colonial revival. It does qualify for 7 criteria outlined in the staff report. These are the buildings right across from the mission, so they really interact with the mission as an important resource. So they're really very highly visible and important to our community. Next slide. And the next one we have is 405 Cannon Drive. This is in the San Roque neighborhood, constructed in 1929 by the noted architects Edwards and Plunkett. It is a really highly intact historic resource up in an area that we don't have a lot of resources noted at this time. And it qualifies for 4 of the criteria outlined in the municipal code. Next slide. And then we have 3308 Kai Fresno. This house is also in the San Roque neighborhood, constructed in 1931 in the Spanish colonial revival style by Henry Howell, and qualifies for 4 of the criteria outlined in the municipal code. And all of these were recommended to move for your recommendation by the Designation Subcommittee. Next slide. Okay, so that's all for the item 1, and I will hand it over back to Commissioner Grumbine, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. So let's now go to public comment on this item, right? Should do that first. And then, so anyone from the public wishing to comment on this item, please raise your hand following the instructions. Or sorry, I took your job, Ellen.
That's all right. I appreciate it. So yes, if you wish to comment, just please raise your hand using the hand icon and I will call on you. I see Mr. Richard Clausen. Mr. Clausen, I just unmuted you. If you could please unmute yourself, and you'll have 2 minutes. And it looks like you've just done that. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Cokinda and Mr. Chair. I'm the owner of 3308 Calle Fresno, and so I'd like to make a few remarks about that. We have friends who live in Horsham, England, and raise their 20-something daughters in a tiny home with the postal address merely of the Well Cottage. Originally living there was an early employee benefit for the 19th century farm worker who tended the well and irrigated the crops. So historic significance is a relative thing. Still, Kathy and I are proud of this recognition for the house that we've called home for 36 years in a city known for its interest in preservation. We're just the 4th owners in its almost 90 years. One of the subtle touches is the attached garage under its own roof. It's built 2 feet below and 1 foot lateral to the rectangular main house. That slight adjustment is structurally unnecessary, but I've always thought of it as a nod to the revival style, borrowed from Andalusia by George Washington Smith, who saw centuries-old, multi-generational homes there with up and down additions. As Ms. Hernandez noted in her staff report, our home and another on today's agenda, 405 Cannon, are part of the 1926 country club named San Roque Park. That development was populated with a few homes until the idea was derailed by the 1929 stock market crash, the ensuing Great Depression, and another world war. There are 30 homes in that proposed development built between 1926 and 1936. And I hope to encourage more of my neighbors to bring their homes to your notice. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Chair Grumbine, I don't see anyone else who has raised their hand for this particular item. Again, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand using the hand icon. And I think you can go ahead and continue unless we received written, or actually, forgive me. I see Daniel Meisel, hang on. I've just unmuted you. Mr. Meisel, if you could please unmute yourself I'll send you an unmute request. You can also click the microphone icon on your GoToWebinar. Looks like you just did. You have 2 minutes whenever you're ready.
I'm ready now. Thank you very much, Ms. Glinda, and thank you, Mr. Chairman and other members of the committee. I just wanted to briefly say I really appreciate your dedication to keeping the Spanish colonial architectural style in Santa Barbara intact, and our home is uniquely intact and has been well cared for over the years, but it is showing its age, and we are eager to be designated and to move forward with some assistance from the Mills Act with maintaining the home. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time today. That's it.
Thank you. Great.
And I think
All right.
that is everyone who has raised their hand at this point, unless we've received written correspondence. Ms. Plummer.
There was no written correspondence received for this item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, in that case, back to the commission for questions, comments, discussion. If everything is looking good, then we can get a motion. But unless anyone wanted to make any comments first. Looking good, then.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Drury.
Mr. Chair.
I'm getting a reverb.
I better turn off the TV. Wait a minute. Yes, my comment is, are there not two Nicole Hernandez's working overtime? Because the amount of work that these reports entail and the expertise which you show is just remarkable. I learn stuff about my hometown every time I read one of your reports. And I'm just very happy about it. Thank you.
I appreciate that. It's been busier than I've ever been with 13 Mills Act applications this year, and it's been a busy summer for being in COVID.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner House.
Well, we're the beneficiaries of all that work. Thank you very much.
We are. Thank you, Nicole.
Yes, thank
I
you.
will make a motion to adopt resolutions to designate as structures of merit 414 Plaza Rubio, 405 Cannon Drive, and 3308 Calle Fresno.
Second.
All right, motion by House, second by Uli, under discussion. All right, motion by House, second by Uli, under discussion. I'm getting reverb again.
Part of my interaction, so I think Chair Grumban, you might have two audios going. Are you able to mute your computer and just go off of your phone?
Yeah, let me try that. Hold on.
You're good now.
It's not that we have two hearings at the same time, but you know.
How about now? Is this
two Nicole?
Yeah, I think you're good to go. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. No worries. I mean, no, if it continues. Okay. So where were we? We had a motion. We had a second. We roll call. There we go. Okay. Let's do a roll call. Roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll begin the roll call vote now. Vice Chair House.
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan.
Aye.
Sorry, I'm hearing a bit of an echo still.
I guess I'm wondering how, I think Mr. Drury, are you watching this on TV or are you? Okay, I think we might be picking up some extra sound from Mr. Drury. So maybe, I don't know if you're watching this by TV or just mute yourself, or we might not pick up the background. Okay. I think we can go ahead, Heidi. I think it's Mr. Drury's. There's something going on with, he's picking up feedback, and he might be too close to a device, or it might be just that as TV, if he's watching this on TV, that he's picking up audio from the TV, if he could mute the TV.
It might be the dread Irish effect.
Yeah, that could be it.
Oh, I will move on. Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
Commissioner Drury.
Aye.
Opened a can of worms.
Yeah.
Yes. Aye.
There we go. Commissioner Lundvik.
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you.
All right. So we are on to next item.
Mr. Chair, it's hard to believe I
Oh,
know, but we
appeal.
are running a little bit ahead of time.
Oh, wow. Well, look at us.
Yeah, the next item is scheduled for 2:20. So we can wait 2 minutes, or if you'd like to take a couple of minutes break, we can do that as well. But we can only do it within 15 minutes.
Just have,
Gotcha.
And
So let's
just have Nicole talk slow.
And you will need to announce the appeal period. Apologies for interrupting you before that. I
Okay,
just wanted
so-
to make sure you didn't start the next item.
Aye.
Gotcha. Okay, so for the last item, item 1, there's a 10-day appeal period to City Council. So, all right. Do you want me to read this whole thing, or is it good? Okay.
No, Mr. Chair, it's just for viewing purposes.
I can read it really slowly and take like 3, 4, 5 minutes.
There you go.
You can do that.
Really slow.
All right. All right. So let's, all right. Well, I guess we can just, I'm seeing 1 more minute. Should we just wait 1 more minute and then, okay. Does anyone have any talent? Could you like juggling or something? Mr. House?
None whatsoever.
Any historic jokes?
Any cute pets at the office or
Oh,
anything?
pet. There we go. We can go the pet route. Yeah. Come on, someone's gotta have a dog.
Thing's
We can-
tail did pass in front of the camera a while ago. I'll bring her on for show and
Might
tell.
see more of that later on. I'm fortunate that he's sleeping right now.
Don't wake him up.
See, I'm trying to think if there's anything else we can talk about.
Well, if my computer was mobile, I could show you my garden.
Mr. Chair, I
Oh.
think we're good to go. It's 2:05.
All right.
Yeah.
So we delayed long enough. All right. Okay. All right. So now we'll go on to item 2, Millsacks contract applications. So the commission has requested to review Millsacks program 10-year rehabilitation plans and recommend to the community development director to approve Millsacks contracts for the following properties. The proposed 10-year rehabilitation plans meet the criteria outlined in the municipal code. All right. So, Ms. Hernandez.
Thank you. So this, all of the Millsacks applications for this next group have all already been designated structures of merit. So they all qualify and none of them need an exception from council because they all are under the property value limit. And even if we accept all the applications we're doing, most of them today and a few on September 16th that still need their resolution of intention to designate. Even if we accept them all, we'll only be at the 64,000 for an annual impact to the city budget, which is the council said is 260,000. So we're way under the budget. So we don't have any reason competitively to reject or accept one or the other. It's really just on the merits of their scope of work. And just for time's sake, I'm just going to do a few highlights of the scope work that you have more detail in your reports that you were sent. And if you have more questions, we can pull those up. How's that sound?
Great.
So the
Sounds good.
first property is 3 West Los Olivos, also known as 2135 State Street. So some of the major highlights of their work is painting the exterior house. They have an exterior stone, not stone, but stucco wall. They do have some vinyl windows that were installed that aren't appropriate in other parts of the house that they're going to remove and match with, to match the original, which the originals are what you see on this front elevation. They're gonna, do some roof work, replacing the underlayment and retiling the roof, which is always very extensive. So those are some of the highlights. They're also doing lots of other little things. Next slide. Then we have 326 East Arriaga, this craftsman style house. They're doing some electrical upgrades. Lots of these still have knob and tube wiring they upgrade. Exterior painting and repairs, foundation bolting and seismic, and repair of mechanical and HVAC. Next slide. 224 East Figueroa Street, also doing exterior painting repairs, replacing heating and HVAC. They have one of the beautiful ashlar cut stone walls that I adore, and they'll be repairing that, as repairing the original windows and termite treatments. Next slide. 1746 Prospect, repairing the original windows, deteriorating wood on the front porch, painting the exterior of the house, and doing the roof work. Next slide. 802 Jimeno is also doing roof work. They also have really extensive stone walls. They're up there on the Riviera that they'll be maintaining and repairing the original windows. Next slide. And 405 Cannon, which we just designated as a structure of merit. They will be replacing the deteriorated French doors to match the originals, installing gutters and downspouts, refinishing hardwood floors, repairing cracks in the stucco and repainting the exterior, and doing electrical upgrades. Next slide. I think that's it. That's it for the big batch of Millsacks contract.
All right, great. Okay, so let's go to public comment now. So any member of the public wishing to comment, please follow the instructions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you'd like to comment on this particular agenda item, please raise your hand using the hand icon and I will call on you and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. And the hand icon, you'll see the red arrow pointing on the screen is where you click. And I do not see anyone who has raised their hand for this item. Ms. Plummer, did we receive any written comment?
No, Ms. Cookinder, we did not receive any written correspondence.
Okay, I don't see any more hands raised. So, Mr. Chair, back to you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so to the commissioners, questions, comments? Commissioner Lundvik?
I have a question for Nicole. I don't see any dollar amounts on the various Millsacks documents were provided. Is that normal that we don't see that?
Yes, I provide them when it's just for the commission or for the designation subcommittee that reevaluates them, but we don't put them on this because they're public and that's kind of private information, actually, like their financials. So that was a staff decision, but if you want to see them, I can get them to you.
No, I missed the last designation committee because I had a computer failure, so I would have seen them then. Thank you. The you indicated that we are well within the allowable funding provided for the Mills Act, and can you tell us what this amount of these 6 items are? Or isn't that information?
So if I did the total of all the Millsacks impacting this year, so if we add all of them that have applied this year to the ones that we already have, it'll be about 64,000 a year impact. And we have a budget of 250. So we're well under the threshold. I think in like it starts to snowball as we keep adding and adding. So in several years, we're going to start to see that maybe like 5 to 10. But that's why we did an annual cap so we can keep track. And as they reapply, we can evaluate them. And we have 2 that are reapplying today.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Hurley, did you have a question?
No, I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay. Any other questions before? Questions, comments? Sorry. Okay, Commissioner Hurley.
I'll move that we recommend to the Community Development Director approval of the Mills Act contracts for 3 West Los Olivos Street, 326 East Arriaga, 3 West Los Olivos Street, East Figueroa. 326 East Arriaga, 3 West I'll wait
We're getting
for
the feedback.
1746 Prospect, 802 Himeno, and 405 Cannon Drive.
Second by House.
All right. Motion by Uli, second by House. Under discussion. Any discussion? All right. Roll call and vote, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll begin the roll call vote. Commissioner Mahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yep.
Commissioner Lenvik,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Aye.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Um,
Okay.
Mr.
So-
Chair, can I
Oh,
make a quick?
is this appealable?
No, they're not appealable.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just had a quick follow-up to Commissioner Lenvick's question about submitting the financials, and we review them
Yes,
at the
please.
Designation Subcommittee. And I think the real reason for them to submit them is so they know what obligation they're getting under when they come in and they're under contract for these scopes of work, and they have some sort of estimate of what their portion is going to be, because the tax reduction doesn't pay for the whole thing. And sometimes if they're a little low or we have concerns, we can talk about that with them, because we don't want them to be under contract for something they can't fulfill. But the reason, but I think all staff felt it wasn't appropriate to put that kind of financial information of someone's private financials on the internet.
And we also get the last four of their social and their mother's maiden name.
What?
Just kidding. Okay. All right. Are we too far ahead? Timeline?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I think
We're just too good today.
we were expecting a lot more deliberation, so unfortunately we're gonna have to recess until 2:45. So
All right.
that's-
When we come back, let's try to be more cantankerous, please.
all right, thank you.
All right. We are adjourned. Reconvene Historic Landmarks Commission, August 19th, 2020. So we are on to item 3, Mills Act contract applications requesting exceptions from council. So, Ms. Hernandez.
Great. So these two, we will just be taking your recommendations and they will go to city council for the exception for the property value. And the first one we have, I can go back to the, is 1815 Laguna Street. This is a designated structure merit. This was the Lockwood DeForest building or house, and they have over the years have had some vinyl windows put in, and they're going to replace them with wood to match the original. Going to repair and paint siding and wood trim on the front porch and loggia, and replace missing molding, among other things. And next slide. 414 Plaza Rubio, which was just designated a few minutes ago. We'll be doing seismic upgrades, plumbing upgrades, electrical upgrades, repairing or painting the interior, cracking plaster, and refinishing wood flooring. And I think that's it for this section. Yeah. That's it for this section.
All right. Great. So now we'll go to public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to comment can virtually raise your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon and I will call on you and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. And I see Greg Hesterberg. Mr. Hesterberg, I've just unmuted you. If you could please, you've turned on your audio, please, you have 2 minutes whenever you're ready.
I did, and I just wanted to say we're very appreciative of if we're approved for the Mills Act, because this house that's a unique house and it presents a lot of work for us to do in the future, and we're grateful for any help that we can get. And I'm open to any questions you guys might have, because I know we were before you a few years ago when we first bought the house, and we're got our permits resolved, and so we're excited to be moving on to some of the more fun things.
Great. All right.
And Mr. Chair, I think that's everyone who's raised their hand. I'll give you one more moment if you wish to speak on this item, and ask Ms. Plummer if we've received any written comment.
Thank you, Ms. Cookinden. No, we haven't received any written correspondence on this item.
Okay, back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, so to the commissioners for questions or comments.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner House.
Nicole, could you please explain what the exception is and why that is required?
Yeah. You beat me to that question.
I knew I could do that.
And it was actually probably would have been answered if I had read the thing at the beginning. So
I didn't see anything.
The description.
The council has a property value limit cap of 2.5 million that the HLC can approve the Mills Act property tax reduction on. Anything over that needs to go to council to make an exception to that.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah, it's.
Yes, you need to embellish more so we don't have to take another recess.
I know. We did raise the limit, but I think they just feel like they want to review anything over that property value for, it's 2.5 for residential and 3 million for commercial. We have them every year that we've done this.
Right down there.
Thank you.
Every year we've done this, but it's, I think.
Yeah, so.
They're not blanketed.
And also for those who Commissioner Lendick, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, so I want to make sure I heard you correctly. The value of the property exceeds the allowed limit of the Mills Act without an exemption from the council.
Right.
And that
Right.
limit is 2.5 million.
For residential. Yes,
Thank you.
And
3 million for commercial.
And as just as a clarification for that 2.5 million, it's done it's what is that? Where is that number coming from? What is that? It's not the normal assessed value process. There's just something different about it, right?
Yeah, so it comes from the most recently assessed value. So when part of their application is submitting their most recently tax assessed value of the house or property, and we use that as the number. And if it's over the threshold, they need to go to city council. They go to you for a recommendation, and then they go to city council. And that's, I think, just so city council can see what size, if they want to look at it more. But that's just the way the rules and procedures are written. And we did raise the threshold. It was 1.5 million as of last year. But the property values are so high in Santa Barbara, we are going forward with almost all our properties to council last year.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner House.
is this a threshold imposed by the Mills Act, or it's a threshold imposed by the city council that wants to exercise more oversight at that level?
It's imposed by our own ordinance, yeah.
Okay.
It's an arbitrary number. You just pick a number out of the air and say, okay, let's look at everything over 2.5.
Uh-huh.
Mhm. When we raised the cap last year, we looked at other California communities and what they were doing, and it seemed pretty consistent. So that's what we did.
Got it.
It kind of makes some
All
sense because
Mr. Chair?
the higher.
Oh, hold on one second, Commissioner Drury. We'll let Commissioner Uli finish his comment, and then we'll jump to you.
Thank you.
Apologize to the Irishman. So, it makes some sense because obviously the higher the evaluation, the higher the potential impact is to the budget when the Mills Act contract is approved. So that makes some sense and we don't see a landslide of these things, so it's not, a huge deal.
Mr. Drury is like a leprechaun.
Commissioner Drury?
You can't see him, but you know he's there.
Yes, but I'm there. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hernandez, could you give a brief encapsulation of the history of the East Indian craft revival style? I want all that history in about 3 minutes.
It only exists for this one house.
It does only exist in this house in Santa Barbara, at least. I mean, this is basically, I didn't know what to call it, and the homeowner found the term in some research they were doing. And it really comes because Lockwood DeForest was an interior designer and furniture designer. He was bringing things from the Southeast, and from like India and South Asia to incorporate into his buildings. So the big ornate element on the front of the loggia, which you can see in your report, really illustrates that, as well as his house in New York City that has the same big, really ornate elements like from that era.
And it's the one style the one historic style that had vinyl windows.
Yes,
little known made up fact.
Made out of bamboo.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Lenvik.
It's more the detailing than anything else, isn't it?
Mhm.
Ah. Okay.
I drive by that house almost once
Every day.
Every day, and I would love to be able to stop by and see it closer, but I believe I would be imposing myself on the owner. But it is in the details, from what I understand.
Yeah, it's a really lovely house.
Yes, it is.
Maybe we'll all get invited when it's totally renovated.
Maybe.
There's a precedent for that.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's right.
Great. All right. Well, any other? Are we okay for time and continuing?
Mr. Chair, the next item isn't supposed to start until 3:20. So technically we'll have to recess until 3:05.
Okay, well, in that case, we're going to keep talking about this project.
We can make a motion and really drag the act on the motion out really, really long. I don't believe this has been motioned or seconded yet, has it?
No, it hasn't. I just wanted to do a time check in case we were short.
We got 8 minutes.
Okay. So yeah, well, we can continue. We can continue with any discussion about it.
Well,
I think, and
I'll certainly
there was this. Oh, go ahead.
I'll offer the motion.
Okay.
That the Historic Landmarks Commission make a motion to recommend that the City Council grant an exception to the Mills Act contract limits and recommend the Community Development Director approve the proposed Mills Act contracts for the properties listed in item 3, which are
1815
Laguna Street and 414 Plaza Rubio. Would you like me to read the parcel numbers? And no, I'm just trying to make
yeah, no, you're doing a good job. That's
Esteemed Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner House.
I, Steve House, Commissioner and Vice Chair, second that motion.
Very good job using up an extra 10 seconds.
So, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to let you know the owner for the property, Greg Hesterberg, has his hand raised. It's your discretion if you want to let the owner speak after public comment, but I did want to let you know that.
Yeah, thank you for that. Considering we have extra time and we have a motion and a second and we're under discussion, why don't we put this on hold and go back to public comment?
We've got time to burn.
Right.
Thank you,
Exactly.
Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Hesterberg, I've just unmuted you. If you please unmute yourself. There you go.
I did. I just wanted to say that everybody is invited over whenever you want to come. And we were actually going to be on the Pearl Chase tour this year, which unfortunately was canceled. And but we'd be happy to have guests as long as you appropriately social distance and wear your mask.
Oh, good.
Accommodate you. And Martine wanted to say something as well.
I'm going now.
I had just a comment about the East Indian Craft Revival style. He was in partnership with Louis Comfort Tiffany, and they would import various decorations for houses because they did interior design in partnership. And it could be anywhere from teak wood to mahogany to brass and steel screens and a furniture that's in the Smithsonian, decorated at Oleana and Bryn Mawr and other historic structures. And so it was a style that was only around for like 10 or 20 years, but at the time, I mean, it was really influential, say around the turn of the century until about, it petered out around 1910 or 1915 when our house was built. So if you're ever out and want to see Oleana or our house or his house in New York City at East, I think it's 10th Street, some examples are out there and they're very interesting.
Lovely, thank you.
It does, yeah. Thank you for that additional info. And I think it would be great as things go forward if Nicole, if you could stay in touch with them, and if there is a way of setting up at some point a site visit, that would be great.
Sure.
An appropriate time. And
yes, I know. Just for all of you, I keep photos of all the beginning of the projects, and I do interim site visits throughout. And as you know, we had the one owner invite us all in when it was complete, but I will let you know as the projects get complete and if we can all go. It was nice when we did a big group visit one earlier.
Sounds good.
Just before COVID.
Well, there's hope. There's life after COVID someday. Okay, well, why don't
Roll
we
call.
have under discussion? Any more discussion? All right. So why don't we do roll call and vote?
Take it
Thank you, Mr.
slowly,
Chair.
Heidi.
I'll take my time. All right, I will begin the roll call vote now. We'll start with Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
I.
Commissioner Lenvik,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
YES.
Commissioner Mahan,
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
That is unanimous and as slow as I could take it. I'm sorry.
That was good. Good job. All right, so this is not a appealable action as well, correct? This is going to City Council.
Yeah, it's just going to council, yeah.
Okay. So I guess we are now, we still have 3 minutes and before we go to the next item. So let's see, is there any good books to read? Maybe we'll just do a little 5-minute recess. All right. So
Sounds good.
recess for 5. Take 5. Let's reconvene Historic Landmarks Commission, August 19th, 2020. All right, so we are on to item 4, Millsacks contract renewal applications. The commission has requested to review the proposed Millsacks program 10-year rehabilitation plans for multiple properties listed below and recommend to the community development director to renew the Millsacks contract for the following landmark properties. The proposed 10-year rehabilitation plan meets the criteria outlined in Municipal Code 22.22.160. Item A, 821 Coronal Street. This is the application for Millsacks contract renewal for an additional 10-year contract for the Hunt Staubach House, Italianate style house constructed in 1873 to 1874. This is a landmark. The proposed 10-year rehabilitation plan meets the criteria outlined in Municipal Code 22.22.160. And then on item B, 215 West Valerio Street, application for Millsacks contract renewal for an additional 10-year contract for the Queen Anne style house constructed in 1887 that is a landmark. The proposed 10-year rehabilitation plan meets the criteria outlined in Municipal Code 22.22.160. All right, Ms. Hernandez.
Yes, thank you, commissioners. I wanted to just start this, are the first 2 contracts that we've ever had come to their 10-year term. And we just have to approve that they renew for the next 10 years. When we went back to council to amend the program, because it was a pilot program and we went to amend it last year, we all decided that in order to keep renewing for each new 10 years, the applicants needed to come up with a new scope of work. So that as long as they're getting the tax reduction, they're continuing to maintain buildings, which, as we all know, is not hard to do with an older house because they always need maintenance, but it helps framework that we can tell the taxpayers what they're getting their tax reduction for. And so these are our first 2, and once you approve it, their current contracts will just roll over and we'll keep going for another 10 years. So the first house, as you said, is the Hunt Stonebach house. This house, they have done so much work in their first 10 years. So they have successfully completed all the reporting forms that we require to make sure all the work that they committed to was completed. And their new scope of work includes sanding and painting the exterior, repairing termite damage, dry rot on porches and decks, installing new roofs on pitched roofs, repairing windows, painting the interior, refinishing hardwood floors. Next slide. And 215 West Valeria Street, she's doing an amazing amount of work. There was a 1980s addition in the rear, and that had some aluminum sliders, and she's gonna install windows to match the originals. She's also gonna replace a lot of that siding because that siding is not termite resistant like the old redwood, and she got some recycled redwood to put on that elevation as well as refinishing floors. She still has painting to do. She's trying to get all the really complicated work done and then do an overall painting scheme on the exterior. So, and I enjoyed working with her because she shows me all the salvaged material she's found. She finds amazing salvaged material, which is always really exciting for us architecture historians who love original materials. So those are our two. And another, I wanted to just follow up on the 10-year renewal. Another reason council wanted us to keep track of things renewing is so, if we get to a point where we get near that 250,000 a year point in other projects are renewing, we can look at, do we want new participants or renewing our participants? But right now we're way under, so we don't have that conflict, but it does give everyone a little bit of time to reflect on what's happened and what's going forward.
Thank you. All right. So now let's go to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to comment, please follow the instructions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand using the hand icon and I'll call on you and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. And at this time, I don't see anyone. I will ask Ms. Plummer if we received any written public comment.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, we haven't received any written correspondence on this item.
And I still don't see any hands raised. So back to you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. All right, so to the commission for
Forgive
questions.
me, I'm sorry. I just saw a hand raised right as I was saying that.
Okay.
Would you mind allowing this
We'll
person?
reopen. Yep.
Sorry about that. Ellen Bilston, I see your hand raised. If you could please unmute yourself using your microphone icon, and then you'll have 2 minutes to speak. I've just sent you an unmute request. Go ahead, Ellen. It looks like your audio is on.
Ellen, I'm really sorry. Somehow every time I join this meeting, my hand is automatically up and it's not intended. So my apologies.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. It was just funny timing. Sorry about that.
Well, why don't you just tell us what you think about it anyway?
Thank you.
Laura, let's see what you have to say.
All right, back to you, Mr. Chair.
All right, great. Okay, so now we'll close public comment and back to the commission for questions. Any questions about the Mills Act contract renewals? Commissioner Lenbick, did you have any questions?
No, but I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay. Any other comments or questions before Commissioner Lenbick makes a motion?
I'm prepared to second it.
Any other comments or questions before the seconder is ready to second it? All right.
I'm happy to make a motion to recommend to the Community Development Director that the city renew the Mills Act contracts for 821 Coronal Street and 215 West Valerio Street.
I'll second that emotion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Under discussion, any discussion? All right, let's do a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll begin the roll call vote. Commissioner Jury? Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll begin the roll call vote. Commissioner Jury?
Aye.
Commissioner Lundvik?
Yes.
Vice Chair House?
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan?
Yes.
Commissioner Uli?
Yes.
Chair Grumbine?
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So this is that's a recommendation to City Council. That's not that is not appealable, right? Confirming.
Correct.
Oh, appeal
Correct.
period.
They're not
Okay.
appealable.
All right, and we did such a great job with reading things thoroughly and slowly that we are actually within range, aren't we, to continue
Yes,
with
that's
the next
correct.
item?
Yes.
All right, good job. We have the new pace. This is the slow-mo pace for this meeting. All right, so we are on to item 5, resolution of intention for structures of merit designations. The commission is requested to adopt a resolution of intention to hold a public hearing on September 16th, 2020 to consider designating the following historic resources below as structures of merit. So item A, 806 Orange Street. This is an Italianate style house constructed circa the 1880s. And item B, 1734 Kappa Street. This is a Queen Anne style house constructed in 1888. Item C, 21 East Cannon Perdido Street. This is Spanish colonial revival style building constructed in 1927. And Ms. Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you noted, these are all just resolutions of intentions to set the date for the hearing. The designation subcommittee did review the applications for designation, and you will see their designation and their Millsacks contracts on September 16th. And if you'll go to the next slide, this is the image of 806 Orange. Just a little tiny, beautiful little workman's style cottage amongst a whole street of them over on Orange. I think it's actually Orange Avenue. I'm sorry if that might be a typo, but it's pretty special, and they're planning a full restoration. So it's pretty exciting to see that work happening. And the next project, 1734 Kappa Street. So this house is also going under full restoration. The owner found the original photographs of the house and has had elevations drawn up of how best she can return this to the closest she can to the original configuration, including like opening up that top balcony. It was a 2-layer balcony, and getting rid of the odd side projections that the house has. So it's quite an undertaking to bring it back to what it was. And she also even found original windows in the basement. It's just taking out aluminum windows and putting original windows back. And the next slide, 21 East Cannon Perdido. This is constructed in 1927 in the Spanish colonial revival style, I believe by Edwards and Plunkett, and it has been over the past year going under major renovations to bring it up to a condition that new tenants can enjoy, and it will be continuing with the renovations. So it's really getting a lot of upfront work, and really quite a gem in our downtown. And I can expand on those if you need to. So like I said, it's just setting the date today.
Great. Thank you. All right. So now we will open public comment for this item. Okay, any member of the public wishing to comment, please raise your hand.
All right. So it looks like, again, I see Ellen Bildston. I see your hand raised. We'll try this one more time. I hope that It looks, your microphone screen, did you want to speak on this item?
I do not. No, thank you.
Okay. All right. So sorry. I don't know why that happens to you. That's terrible. And again, if you wish to speak on the item, please click the raise your hand icon and I'll call on you. I don't see anyone else at this time. Just ask Ms. Plummer if we received any written correspondence.
Thank you, Ellen and Mr. Chair. We did not receive any written correspondence on this item.
Okay, and just to let members of the public know that if Timmy, could you go back to that slide ever so briefly? So if you look at the bottom, a raised hand is indicated by a red arrow pointing down. It's a little counterintuitive. If your hand has the green arrow going up, it is not raised. So just FYI for members of the public. Thank you.
And a note for GoToWebinar to maybe rethink their icons going forward in 2.0.
Truly, it's the worst. It's so confusing. It's so counterintuitive.
Yep. All right. So now with that, why don't we go back to the commission and have any questions or comments? We actually are reaching our 15 minutes, the next item, so we actually don't need to slow down too much. So if there's no questions or comments, we can move on with the motions.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
All right.
This would be a motion to adopt a resolution of intention to hold a public hearing on September 16th, 2020 to consider designating 806 Orange Street, 1734 Anna Kappa Street, and 21 East Cannon Perdido Street as structures of merit.
Second.
Second that motion.
All right. I heard Commissioner Uli first say second. Under discussion, Commissioner Lenbeck.
Yes. I have been curious about 1734 Anna Kappa Street. And if the staff would put that photo back up again, I'd appreciate it. This house is intended to be taken back to its near original condition. That photograph, of course, is where it's existing now. It's got a long ways to go. And I'm wondering if we are jumping the boat a little bit. I don't know if this is viewable. That is the condition today. And you can see, if you can zoom in on me, you can see that they've already pulled away the structure on top of the entry porch and the structure on the right side or south side, I would say, of the house. But they got a ways to go. I mean, the cupola has got to be changed significantly, so on and so forth. My only question for the commission is, and the staff, is are we jumping the boat on this by taking this to the next level, which is a designation?
And if I can, I'll answer that partly, and then maybe Nicole can chime in as well, because this was under the discussion for the of the subcommittee when we were discussing it. And unfortunately, you weren't. You were not there that day. You had the technical difficulties, I think. And in the discussion was this kind of is it cart before the horse, or what comes first, chicken or egg kind of discussion, because it's difficult to declare something a structure of merit and certainly a landmark if it's in not a great shape, or if it's in it hasn't been restored yet. But at the same time, it's also, they can't get Millsacks contract or anything else to help them restore it without first being a structure, at least a structure of merit. And so it was that question of, was there enough material on the existing house of existing material and of existing elements and forms that we could find it cross the threshold enough to be able to at least be a structure of merit of our lowest level that we accept. So that was part of the whole discussion, was whether there was, and because obviously that, well, not necessarily obviously, but for looking at the image right now, and if Timmy can kind of point out exactly what was taken off per your picture as well, Commissioner Lenvik, the upper level of the porch right below the dormer, right a little bit down there, that roof, and then that wall right there where the little hand is. That whole portion was not original, and per the photograph is where the owner wants to take it back to, and all is obviously that portion is already removed, and so with the goal being restoring the exactly, and that's actually one step closer to where the original was as well. So the thinking of the subcommittee was that there was enough actual material. The shingles are all there and existing and original. The moldings, the crown mold and the dentals above, the siding. There were pieces added, but there's a lot there that's almost all original. And so the thinking was it would be, there we go. So the original photographs being shown down below, and now with the portion even removed, that brings it back mostly to this form. But with the dormer still needing to be replaced to the cylindrical dormer and all those pieces. But there was enough of an existing fabric that we were comfortable making it at least a structure of merit for now. And then with the hopes that it gets even better, which is what the restoration plan is. And the other aspect was the city also has the ability with the Mills Act to also have it's a contract, so they need to live up to their end of things, and there's also an ability for it to go both ways, kind of thing, as a contract. So there was some comfort in that, and I think Commissioner Uli and being there as well, if you wanted to chime in at all, if I missed any pieces, and Minister Hernandez of the discussion.
Can you pull up the drawings for the proposed elevation too, especially the front elevation? That's the side elevation.
Mr. Chair, I think you characterized the sense that the subcommittee had in that we struggled, as Commissioner Lenvik does, struggled with whether or not there was enough there to make the designation, and realizing that this work, will take some time to reach its ultimate goal. And were we jumping the gun by designating it in its current form? I think we all concluded, as you summarized, that there was enough of the composition, enough of the original material, and enough of the detailing that at least reached the minimum threshold of what we thought designation should mean. And, looking at other examples within the city, there are designated structures of merit that have less, that have been more impacted. So I felt comfortable in supporting the designation, and I feel comfortable supporting this item.
And I think just as a follow-up, I think again, to cap on Chair Grumbine's comment, is with the contract with the Mills Act, that's there to help the restoration and incentivize it, but it is under contract that is recorded. So they are very much tied to the work as well. I know some communities I've researched won't even allow Mills Act contracts unless the buildings are dilapidated. Whereas we use this things like maintenance and restoration. So it is hard to get to that structure merit place without the Mills Act contract to help with the restoration. So we are kind of caught with a little bit of technicality there in that sense.
And I believe our Mills Act program have significant penalties if you were unable to reach your 10-year contract.
Yes, you have to, it's about a 12%, you have to give the city essentially about 12% of your property value.
So that's going to motivate a person to get the work done.
Yep. Does that answer what your question or your concerns are, Commissioner Lundvik?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that this is a work in progress and that we're going to take action on it when it actually comes before us for designation. And we may see more work has been accomplished by that time. Although September 16th isn't that far away. But I think it's a beautiful home. And I would love to see it preserved, particularly on that nice, comfortable piece of property. So I am all for it, but I just want to make sure that we're all aware of what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other discussion? So we have a motion and a second. Is that right? I'm trying to remember now where we were. We were on discussion. Yeah. Yeah. So why don't we do a roll call vote?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will begin the roll call vote. Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
Commissioner Mahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Chair Grumpine.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so we're on to item 6, and we're okay on time, so I believe so. Let's 601 East Montesiga Street is a resolution of intention. The commission is requested to adopt a resolution of intention to hold a public hearing on September 16th, 2020 to consider a recommendation to City Council for city landmark designation of La Casa de la Raza, located at 601 East Montesiga Street. Ms. Hernandez?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. And I'd always kind of remind you all as we're going through these and we're looking at the edits to our ordinance, we are proposing to eliminate the resolution of intention step in the next ordinance because it is just to streamline our process a little because it is a lot of staff time and commission time to do a resolution of intention to set the date. And onto the application. So 601 Montesiga Street is the home of Casa de la Raza. It was constructed in 1931 in the Spanish colonial revival style. You know, it's a really interesting architectural feature, this beautiful octagon, like guarding over the corner of this street on Montesiga. And it's really a very powerful impact over the past 50 years to the community. It's been a really important community center to the Latinx community with events like arts and crafts, weddings, concerts. They have a beautiful theater inside that has been home to so many different venues. And I think if you talk to a big portion of Santa Barbara's community, they all relate to this beautiful beacon of like hope and finding community here. And when the nomination came in, it's been on the potentials list for a long time, since 1998, I believe. I think it's really nice to honor that part of our community. And they did nominate it for landmark designation. I did find that also there's a large connection with the muralists that did the murals inside Manuel Zueta, and in the designation report, I detail his impact to the city as well as his impact to the buildings itself. So that is what I'll present today since we're just setting the date. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so we'll go to public comment now. Any member of the public wishing to comment, please follow the icons, what they are supposed to mean, but not what they seem like they.
Indeed. You know, if you wish to speak on this item, you can raise your hand, which is indicated by a red down arrow. And I will call on you. I'll have 2 minutes to speak, and the hand icon is on your GoToWebinar control panel. I do not see anyone who wishes to speak and would just ask Ms. Plummer if we received any written correspondence.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, we haven't received any written correspondence on this item.
Okay, back to you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. All right, so with that, Commissioner Uli, I see you're up. Do you have questions or comments?
I don't have any questions. I make a motion to adopt the resolution of intention to designate 601 East Montesiga Street as city landmark.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that, and I also have a comment.
All right. All right, and under discussion, go ahead, Commissioner House.
I think it's wonderful that we're designating this as a landmark, not only because of its history with La Casa de la Raza, but also I have very fond memories of it when I was starting out in construction, when it was Coleman Building Supplies. And I remember going there and getting helpful advice. And I also remember Ambrose Mill and Lumber around the corner and Ott's Hardware Store downtown. So it just brings back lots of great memories. So I'm glad that it's getting landmarked.
All right, thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair.
Discussion? Commissioner Drury.
I have slightly different memories of La Casa de la Raza in the early 80s. I'll just mention one. I saw Screaming Jay Hawkins at La Casa de la Raza, and you can't beat that. So that's one of the many concerts I saw, but Screaming Jay was fantastic.
Can you give us a little rendition?
Is that, no, I'll put a spell on you. I'll put a spell on you, Commissioner House.
No.
All right. Any other comments or discussion? All right. Let's do a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Heidi Rydell. I'll begin the roll call vote. Vice Chair House.
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan.
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Aye.
Commissioner Drury.
Aye.
Commissioner Lenvik.
Aye.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we are on to item 7. So 215 East Victoria Street. This is a continued item for concept review. This is the about 13,000 square foot lot. It's currently developed a 3-unit building fronting Victoria Street and 2 2-story buildings towards the real lot. Proposal to demolish the existing 1,000 square foot garage, an existing 2-story building, 3-bedroom unit, existing 2-story building, a 2-bedroom unit, and a 45 square foot shed in order to construct a new 2-story apartment building. The 3 existing units in the front building are proposed to remain. The 7-unit project will be developed under the average unit size density, AUD, incentive program. The residential unit mix will include 5 1-bedroom units, 4 2-bedroom units, and 1 ADU, accessory dwelling unit, with an average unit size of 1,125 square feet. Minor site improvements are proposed, including demolition and replacement of the stairs to the 2nd level and replacing the existing entry deck, unit C of existing triplex. The existing driveway and parking areas will remain with new paving and new landscaping throughout the site. Staff hearing officer review is required for an open yard modification. Concept review, there's no final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. Project was last reviewed on July 8th, 2020.
And then, Mr. Chair, if you can go over the minutes from the last meeting of July 8th, and then I'll ask the applicant, you can go ahead and turn on your webcam. Then once he's done reading the comments, you can proceed with your presentation.
Great, sounds good. Okay, so the motion was continued indefinitely with the following comment. The current design as proposed is not consistent with El Pueblo Viejo guidelines. 2, the study the parapet from different angles to show visibility of the solar panels and mechanical equipment on the roof. 3, show views of all surrounding parcels and their relationship to the site. 4, the changes made to the front building and staircase are acceptable. 5, provide additional drawing information on the building elevations of surrounding properties. The motion was by Lenvik, second by Uli, 8-0-0. The motion carried. All right, so welcome.
Thank you.
Introduce yourselves and you go through the changes and your design. Oh, and
Thank
actually
you.
one more thing. Sorry, one more thing I'll just bring up as well, because I see the timer is up. So we've, I don't know if you were here in the last time whether we had the timer up. I think we've had it for one or two of the last HLC sessions, but we have a timer now for presentations. So there's that 15-minute timer. If you need more time, we can be flexible, but we'll try to stay on target for the timing.
Great. Just very briefly, I'm Ellen Bildston Architecture and Planning. This is a project that the owner is really looking forward to pursuing. And Ken Vermillion is the person at our firm who's been heading it up, and he'll tell you more about the detail of the project.
Hi, thank you. Ken Vermillion with Ellen Bildston Architects and Planners. Hello, commissioners. So you can tell on page 1 here what we've done to address the first comment. We've basically assigned 3 major massing elements, a single gable roof form, and we plan to put a terracotta color tile finish on those 3 main roofs. And as you can see, they're very visible from both long ends of the property. It amounts to over about 65% of the roof area. And one of the things that we were looking at since our last meeting was looking back at some of the HLC approved buildings in the EPV, and one that we like over and over again and go back to numerous projects is the Meridian Studios. And you're probably all familiar with that. It's an interesting mix of tile gable roof forms and some hips as well. And about half of the roofs are flat parapet style. And that's kind of what we're pursuing in this revised design. So if we just kind of go through some of the other areas, if we flip to look at the neighborhood sheet 10 in this document, the last sheet. What we did is try to help everybody understand where we're at in the neighborhood. So if you look at the photographs, the aerials in the center bottom and very center of the page, we basically highlighted the project on the upper photo to the east. And that is a 2-story single loaded exterior corridor housing building. And our 2-story essentially single loaded apartment building would be akin to that. That would be most of what's facing that building with the 2 buildings. And if you look at the building on the or the image of the model on the left that says east, that would be the part that's facing that building. There are other model views across the top as well if you had more questions about what's facing that structure. The back part of that property is driveway and detached single garages and carports. And then if we look at the lower image, we've got a 2-story commercial building on the front half of the property, and the rear half is an uncovered open parking surface parking lot. And again, if you look at the model photos around these 2, you can assess the west side view. The upper right photo is a good one. That's what you would see from the back parking lot in that commercial building. That commercial building is right up tight to our entry drive aisle as it exists today, the driveway. And again, this side is dominated by the gable roof forms with the red tile, clay tile roof finish. And so those, I think, are basically the comments and considerations we had. Just if we want to go look at the elevations real quick, page 8. Page 8 would address the parapet comment. So we do know that we would like to utilize solar panels on the flat roof portions. We feel this is a better alternative than putting them on a red tile roof form, which makes them obviously more visible and more prone to damage and leaking. So what we've done is we've increased the flat parapets to 23 feet from the previously dimensioned 21.6. So essentially with a 10-foot floor to floor, floor to roof, we've got a 3-foot parapet to accommodate for sloping of the flat roofs and solar panels with whatever slight angle installation we'd like to go with. And then you can see that the gable roof forms are pretty low slope, about 3.5 and 12. And again, that's a major part of both long elevations. Those forms are, like I said, about 65% of the overall roof surface. You can see we've added a couple of shallow arch forms for up the stairs to the upper units facing the east. And what we plan to do is a kind of a simple reveal with a slight build out at the upper of the flat parapet. So we will do some kind of detail on that so that it differentiates itself from the very clean, simple rollover stucco on, say, the stair guard walls. So those would be easily tell a different story a bit. And so that's really where we went with the changes. We definitely heard the comments from the commissioners. And again, our plea last time was just to see what the commissioners thought about the idea of an all flat roof building behind a front sloped and gabled hip form building in the front, and whether that could be seen as a full development that would be typical of some of the other buildings. But obviously what we've done now is we've turned every building into a majority gable roof form building with the Spanish detailing, albeit simple, but the clay tile and the detailed cornices at the parapets. And we hope we've eliminated your concerns about the solar panel appearance. And I think that's basically it, unless you have specific questions that we can address.
Okay. Yeah, we can definitely get the questions after our public comment. So, and if you had any other rest of your presentation or anything else to say before we go to public comment.
We could do a quick tour back through.
Yeah,
the
why
page
don't you tour? Yeah, can you page through that? I think that would be helpful as well, just to kind of.
We can start with page 2 and understand the neighborhood again. And we think and we agree with the commission's response that the changes made to the front building and our minor touching of the staircase are approvable. We thank you for that. The only other detail that requires is one of those existing lower level units will need a slight modification for the width of their exterior private outdoor living space. But we feel leaving the existing entry balcony intact is the right way to go too. Obviously you can see the buildings to the east and the west, all 2-story. Go through to the next sheet. These are some views from on the property. There's the stair in the lower right as it comes down and faces the driveway. We are going to take that, of course, and flip it 180 degrees and make it land at the front yard space. And then the rest are just kind of looking at the existing parking and carports and drive aisle. Next sheet. Existing survey. We can go through the next sheet. This is how the front building breaks down in its current configurations and the current site plan above. Next sheet. And then there we have the updated roof plan. You can see the flat roofs with designated solar panel capacity. 2 large open air decks for the 2 upper units. And then again, mostly the clay tile gable low slope roof forms. No changes to the ground level plan much. Next sheet. No changes to the floor plans. These are to remain. Next sheet. And then we looked at these long elevations. We did a little bit of added textural siding pieces, most notably on the next sheet, where on the number 1 and 2 elevations, the south elevations of each of the new buildings, we've added some wood siding material behind the woman walking the dog and the woman with the stroller. That's part of that is to hide some wooden gates that would house the enclosed trash areas, so that we can keep that in a tidy location, not out in the yard anywhere. And then you can see how the forms are recessed in for the exterior balconies. And again, the low slope gable forms are a majority of the front and back elevations. And I think that pretty much does it.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. And that's all the sheets, right? Is that all the pages?
Yeah. Yeah, we covered all of it. Final sheet was the response to the neighbors. So.
Okay. Great, thank you. Okay, so now we'll go to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to comment, please click on the hand icon, follow the instructions.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. And if I could just ask the applicants to please go ahead and mute themselves during public comment. And if you wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand using the hand icon. A red arrow pointed down indicates that you have a raised hand. And I do not see anyone who wishes to comment at this time. And Ms. Plummer, did we receive written correspondence?
No, we did not on this item.
Okay, back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now back to the commission for questions. Any questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drury.
Here. My question is, from the sidewalk, you probably won't see the second and third buildings over the existing building. But what do you think the elevation would be across the street? I think it's 4 feet taller. I think at the peak of both. 24 for the front building and 28 for the and that's on a slight slope. I'm just wondering what that profile, if that would be, if you would consider that to be a pleasing profile from across the street.
You're talking about the buildings behind the building. Well, we've got a 2-foot finished floor change as we go back on the site. So each time, each building is successively 2 feet higher than the previous. So yes, definitely with adding the gable roof forms, yeah, we all understood we were going to increase our roof heights. Again, we're just a modest 10-foot floor to floor. So will you see the front building over the roof of the front, the second building over the roof of the first building? Perhaps you would from across the street a bit.
Yeah.
You'd
Okay,
catch the top of it.
All right, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Okay. Commissioner House.
Let's see, where shall I start? First one that comes to mind is I see that it's zoned RO, and I'm wondering, does the solar access ordinance apply in the RO zone? And have you looked at that? And do these buildings comply in terms of casting a shadow on the neighboring parcel?
Well, for the most part, the back half of both parcels are parking lots and stuff. Certainly I don't feel like this is tall enough to affect that. We're talking less than 24 feet for the parapets. That's the portion furthest to the east. That would affect the sun shadows the greatest. Wouldn't have an issue on the west property at all. So at least the gable forms are to the westernmost portion of the site, which would be beneficial.
I only just ask so that you look into it before you get too far along. And I didn't know whether or not staff would have a ready answer for that. My next question is, you don't have any building sections in these conceptual drawings. And I think you mentioned as far as the flat roof sections, it sounded like there's probably about a 9-foot first floor ceiling height and a 9-foot second floor ceiling height. But what is the plate height on the second floor pitched roof elements?
That
Are
would,
those volume ceilings inside?
yes, we would like to realize the volumes where we can in those units, for those portions of the units, yes. So yeah, it would have to kick it up a little bit because we've got flat parapet roof butting into the massing. So that's where we would realize a little bit of a higher ceiling in those units.
So do you think, I mean, considering the parapet, the roof level is down a ways, 18 inches, I think, something like that from those parapets. So those gable-ended sections are maybe a 12-foot plate height?
Yeah, I mean, I without knowing exactly, I would say between 11 and 12, perhaps.
Okay. And then the corner window elements on the second floor, I can't really understand what your intention is because there's no call outs and it's quite different on the elevations versus your model. On the model, it has stout fins that go around the windows, and this looks like a thin material that projects. So what are your thoughts on that?
The thoughts is it would be an interpretation of the classic old, and we can look at the sheet 9. It would be an interpretation of the, there's the window box from Irving Gill as in the lower middle left photo. It'd be a contemporary interpretation of that. It probably wouldn't be made of wood, and the window sashes would not be wood. But like in the model, it's more squared off than an angled. We would be up for looking at how we detailed those in a future review for sure. But of course, at some point, the top needs to be the most important plane to be greater in depth than the bottom. So it's kind of mimics this here. You can see he has a bigger crown on the top, and then the bottom it essentially is tapered in, even though it's plumb.
Yeah, those are all my questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner House. Okay, Commissioner Mahan, question?
Yeah, if we can go to the east and west elevations. Yeah.
Page 8.
Yeah, looking at the east elevation, the section that the first floor section, that it looks like I can't understand what, not the stairs, but to the right of the stairs on the first floor, what are those? They look like columns, kind of wide columns, and then something else in between them. What is that? What is that?
That's a recessed entry for that lower unit. So that doorway isn't on the walkway. It's recessed in a couple, almost 3 feet. So you're seeing an in-plane wall with a window in it for a bedroom egress, and then a recessed portion that would constitute the entry of the unit, and then another popped flush piece on the right that would be the living room of that unit.
Are there windows in there, or what is that? I see horizontal lines.
The horizontal lines would be a different material, a siding of some kind, with some kind of texture. That's what we're trying to indicate. And that's a front door. The white.
Oh, I see. Those are doors back in there. I see that.
Yes.
They're doors. First, I thought they were columns that were out, but I see they're doors.
No, and that face is recessed, like I said, about 2.5 feet.
And this angled on the second floor there, this angled element, that's what you were just talking about before, is some kind of that's like a bay window or
yeah, the window plane doesn't come out. It's really a shroud for sun protection and to mimic that idea of this popped out, you know, Irving Gill type feature.
What material is that? What are you proposing to, how you're proposing to do that?
It could be a metal. It could be I don't think it would be wood, like I said, but it could be a wrapped metal or it could be a steel box of some kind.
And over on the west elevation, if we can get that one. Yeah. So I'm looking at the first new building behind the existing building here. So there's a column. Yeah, there's a column right there. What is that a square column, a round column?
We don't know exactly until we get into structural, but it's probably a wall of a couple of foot depth by, you know, a foot to be a column for the support of the upper level for the carport.
And then what is the space? What is the space to the right of that between the picture of the little man there with the dog and the column? What happens in there?
That's another parking space. I just didn't put a shadow in there for a car.
I see. That's another question. Those are my questions for now, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Mahan. Any other questions from any of the commissioners? Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Lendick.
I look at the floor plans for the two new units and try to reconcile them with the exterior elevations, and I'm having difficulty doing that. I don't know why I'm having difficulty doing that.
In what way? So we're upper level.
I look at the east elevations on, I guess it's sheet 8201. And I look at the floor plan on A102. I see the stair coming up, but I don't see that window, which is at the kind of at the base of the stair in the plan. I don't. I guess it's a door. The east elevation and the floor plan don't seem to jive. I don't understand. I understand that.
Well, you're talking about the upper or the lower level?
Lower level. Yeah, it's the lower level.
So
on the east elevation, the middle building, the smaller building, I guess you'd call that building 2. When I look at the east elevation on the right hand side, is that a door on the ground floor, right in the corner?
That's a living room window. That's a floor to ceiling window in the living room of unit D, as it is.
And is it under an overhang?
No, it's on the east side.
So what is that hard solid line that runs at the head of the window and door? What is that hard solid line? Where does that show up?
It's just it's a material break is all. It's from stucco to a different material other than stucco.
Right, but the plane from upstairs to downstairs they're in plane with each other, with the exception of that recessed entry area that we were looking at earlier.
Okay. Timmy, can you zoom in a little bit and we'll just clarify this?
Yeah, it's just a soft material along the walkway, because this is the main walkway to get to all the units. So we wanted to put less stucco there and more of a nice warm material and like a wood siding is what we're thinking.
So just to confirm, what you're saying is, Timmy, if you could hover over the corner window the whole full height corner window right there. So that is basically in plane within a couple inches of the stucco above, right?
Correct.
And then the wood siding that's to the left of that corner window right there, that's basically in plane with the stucco above as well, just by a couple inches offset. That's why there's a little soft shadow line there.
Yes.
Okay. And then there's the big jog back for the actual opening of the door. It's in recess, a big recess of like 3 feet or whatever, and that's for the entry of the door. And then you go back to the same plane as the upper level with that element there, which is a siding and window. But it's not really strongly recessed. It's just again a couple inches recess.
Correct. Yeah.
Good. Okay.
So one final question.
Yeah, Commissioner Lendick.
Yeah, how you feel comfortable in defining this architecture as Mediterranean that fits within the standards that the EPV requires?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. That's what it's asked.
Yeah, I think the buildings we would reference would be, again, the Meridian Studios and the El Paseo. El Paseo has a lot of flat roof elements, parapet elements, and a mixture of gable roofs and things. So that's what
do you find this transition of materials in the Meridian Studios and full height windows bumping up against a transitional line in the Meridian Studios?
Do they have a change of materials? They're 100% stucco, I believe, so they don't. But we feel that it's important to have a softer material and a mix of materials to help accentuate the stucco forms.
But you feel that selection of materials is consistent with Mediterranean architecture that we have to judge as being appropriate in EPV.
Well, could any horizontally oriented material like a wood plank work? I think it could.
Okay. I actually have an additional question that's somewhat along those lines, but it's a mathing question. Could you zoom out and look at, let's see. Yeah, so then the west elevation, the elevation above, if you can zoom into that a little bit, yeah, there we go. So, so as a follow-up to that, in terms of massing forms, because I think you've made the argument in terms of the flat roof and parapet and the Meridian Studios and that connection, and you've changed your roof forms for other portions, for large portions to gable. Now, the only other massing form that I see that has raises questions of Mediterranean or load-bearing masonry masses of stucco is the carport area and sort of that the massing of a floating solid over a wall plane. How is that this form make the argument for this form being part of the EPV guidelines forms for Mediterranean architecture?
Well, I mean, we're talking about strictly Mediterranean versus maybe something of a hybrid. I mean, the front building, existing building, it couldn't be labeled Mediterranean, certainly. I guess we're kind of.
I agree. I think it has the corner window elements that are from the 30s and 40s, or is pushing that envelope in that way. So I agree, but okay, go ahead and continue.
Yeah, I mean, so we're really trying to bridge a couple of things together. I mean, most of the buildings that are going to be cited in the EPV aren't going to be over parking, open parking. So it's seems like a practical reality that forces some interpretation. And I guess the hope is that by changing a slight bit of the material from 100% stucco on the exterior would help define a massing, whether it seems to be floating in some place and not in another. I guess we're hoping that that alludes enough to the feeling of what the neighborhood would allow, then other than just saying we're going to copy Mediterranean, even though the front building isn't Mediterranean. So I guess we don't want to classify it as anything 100%. We feel like it might be a better solution to have a bit of a mixture going on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions, Commissioner Lenvik? Did you have any other questions?
I have one other question. The front building, does it have parking spaces assigned to it at the present time?
Yes. In a back garage.
And you have enough parking spaces on the site at the present time, or more than enough for the bedroom count on the site at the existing time? Or are you overparked?
No, we have enough currently. I mean, it's existing.
Are you overparked currently?
Its current state, it's existing non-conforming, I would imagine.
Right, and there are a couple of separate structures at the back of this property that amp up the requirement for parking. So we're offsetting by removing those structures and consolidating the parking with that front building as it exists, and then meeting the AUD requirements for parking on site.
But certainly that front building per AUD requires 3 parking spaces, and they need to be, I mean, they need to be under the new buildings since they can't be under the existing, right? So.
Okay, Commissioner Lenvik, does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, I guess it does. I mean, you're telling me that you are providing parking for the existing building under the new buildings.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, any other questions from the commissioners? All right, in that case, let's go into comments.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question following up that parking, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
So the building 1 will have the parking under building 2?
Yes.
Building 2 and building 3 both have parking underneath.
And so building number 1 on the street will have parking as close as possible, I would say, under building 2, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Right. Any other questions before we go into comments? All right, let's go into comments now.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drury.
Can we look at both east and west elevations? That the one we have is the west, we have the east. Yes, thank you. I'm not sure why this is the case visually, but it seems like the building, let's see if I can get this. Where are we? There we go. Doing all this on a phone is really not much fun. The east elevation, I know that the architecture is completely different. There's much less ornamentation on the building, existing building on the street, but it seems more coherent on that elevation with the other 2 buildings than the west elevation. And I'm wondering if it's not something to do with the window piercings on the more window piercings on the east elevation than the west. Seems to me the west gets it's much less interesting in terms of what is presented on that elevation, on the west elevation of all 3 proposed buildings. The little one on the very far end, I think, can get away with it, but those single piercing past, I think those are corner living room windows. Is that correct? On each corner of the proposed 2 and 3.
The ones with the fins?
Yeah, on the west elevation, there's a big corner building. I mean, a big corner, I think, window.
Yeah, sorry,
hover over it.
I couldn't talk, but But yes, those, for now, are all intents and purposes, those are sliding glass doors, full height, that would have a railing in front.
Okay, so I guess my comment would be that the east elevation is more, it's maybe barely coherent with the existing. And I don't know if that's a criterion we need to follow, but I think that the east elevation seems to fit with what's existing better than the west elevation. And the only thing I can think is that it's something to do with that one window in the middle of the space between the sliding glass doors and the corner of that particular elevation. And I don't know if that needs to be bigger or have two small windows like that to make it somehow more interesting. And this is I guess just a question of balance and taste, which I sometimes have and sometimes I don't. But it just seems to me that needs to be maybe just for decorative purposes. Yes, that there. Yeah, so the east elevation seems to be more interesting and the west elevation seems less. And I think it has to do with the central, that one lone window past those sliding glass doors. I think two windows would be much more attractive in terms of the whole visual on the west elevation. And those are my comments.
Okay. All right. Who else wants to comment next? Commissioner Mahan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the east elevation is definitely improved from last time we saw this, and I think that that's coming along, and it has the massing, I think, can become acceptable. I don't feel that wood siding is appropriate to El Pueblo Viejo. I can't think of any Spanish colonial revival, Monterey, or adobe buildings that have wood sidings. A stone would be acceptable. There is the building right south of the post office has brick. I know that the Plunkett did that building. So there are some materials that you could use that might work. Siding, I don't think wood siding would work. Now, where you have a trash area, and they have gates, I think you could have wood there. Usually we require vertical rather than horizontal planking for gates, wooden gates. But I think that the east elevation has made progress, and it's coming along. The west elevation, the problem with the west elevation is that the buildings are not grounded into the earth, and whether you look at the Spanish colonial revival buildings, which are very grounded into the earth, or Irving Gill, I was looking at 2 books of Irving Gill's, and I know you like him, and his buildings are very grounded. In fact, the best ones are very grounded into the earth. And because you have these big, long carports, that's a problem. You're going to have to struggle with that, because these buildings are these second floor is just floating, and it's too contemporary. The same thing, a comment I'll make about these, what you suggested might be metal screens. I just don't see how we could accept that in the district. There are ways to handle buildings that I think we call them miradors, where the window sticks out and it has a wooden screen, but it's a traditional screen. It's not a contemporary screen. I like the fact that you've added the not the hip roof, but the gable roofs. I think that is an improvement. And the west elevation is I can see it as being a very tough architectural problem. So that needs work, and it's these, in my opinion, the west elevation way too contemporary yet, and it just doesn't fit the district. Those are my comments for now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Lenvick.
Yes, I want to step back a little further than Mr. Drury and Mr. Mahan on my comments. Number one, to the applicant, we were willing to accept an architecture that got closer to the front building when you only had one, when you're only adding one building. But when you decided to move to a much larger development, then we felt that you could no longer tie into the front building as an excuse for your architecture. Number two, it appears to me that what you've done is you've kept your Irving Gill kind of architecture, but put a tile roof on it. You have not really taken a hard look at what makes Mediterranean architecture work. And as I look at the west elevation there, the proportions on the upper level from the standpoint of the height of the plaster from bottom of the floor joist, I suppose, up to the plate. I mean, you've got a horribly large facade of plaster there that doesn't really have good proportions to it. Secondly, in Mediterranean architecture, you don't find cutout corners, and you've got windows or doors or whatever cutting out the corner of the building. And in Mediterranean architecture, those corners drop down to the floor, to the ground. As Mr. Mann was saying, the ground, the second floor should be riding on solid material, not on a post or a small wall. But more importantly, in Mediterranean architecture, you don't have cutout corners for sliding windows or sliding doors. You don't do it. That's very contemporary. That's Irving Gill. But that's not what we find as being the kind of architecture in the EPV area of Santa Barbara. And that goes for both the west elevation and the east elevation. Those cutout corners are not traditional. And I think if you were to take and drop the ceiling, the plate height down on that upper level, and move those doors or windows in from the corner and let the corner drop down and become a solid form, you're going to have a better piece of architecture. But I just don't see that you are getting close to what is going to be an acceptable piece of architecture for us to find that it conforms to the EPV requirements. You've taken, as I say, you've taken Gill and put a tile roof on it and called it something that it's not. So I certainly don't think that this is getting anywhere near what we would expect for architecture in the EPV area. Also, beyond that, last time we asked for your plan, site plan, building plan, whatever, to show the adjoining buildings. And you've shown those in a photograph cut up. But when I look at the plans that you've submitted, I don't see where the adjoining buildings are adjoining your property. I mean, A101, why don't I see the adjoining buildings on here? And again, give a sense of how this development is working with the neighbors. That's what I think is important about site planning and architecture. How does your building working with the neighbors? Finally, I find it unfortunate that you're not providing parking for the front building in a rational manner. You're providing it underneath the other two buildings, and that means that the other two buildings, the architecture of the other two buildings is suffering because of the demand for carport on the ground floor. And I think that is really an unfortunate situation. And I don't know that I don't know that your architecture is going to be able to get over that requirement that you've imposed on yourself to have all the ground floor or most of the ground floor of those two new buildings carport. I don't see how you're going to do that. I'm done for now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Uli.
I'll take a stab. While the individual buildings, in my opinion, have made some progress, I still believe that it is basically a contemporary project trying to be a Mediterranean solution in a district that requires it to be so. And it just isn't there for me. It is unfortunate also, kind of picking up on Commissioner Lindbeck, backing up even a few more feet. It is unfortunate that we have guidelines that would not allow the front building to exist. And so it's challenging to use the guidelines to evaluate that building and its importance, and then evaluate anything that's going to be added to the property that has to comply to the guidelines when the front building clearly does not. I recognize that there are a lot of challenges on this particular project. You've got to resolve and solve the front building issues with parking and access and all that, trying to get your unit count, trying to get your yard count, trying to get your parking working, trying to get covered, uncovered, this and that and the other thing. There's a lot going on, so I recognize the challenge. But unfortunately for me, the building is just too contemporary, and I couldn't, using the EPB guidelines, say that it's going to meet the guidelines, for some of the reasons already stated. Corner windows, you don't find corner windows in adobes, you don't find them in Mediterranean, you don't find them in Spanish colonial. You don't find metal wraps that are shrouding windows from sunlight. You don't find these things, angles and funny things going on that are clearly contemporary. And so I think you've got to go back to the drawing board.
All right, Commissioner House.
Well, I feel for you because this project has been a really big challenge all along the way. I would largely agree with all the comments that have been made. I have mixed feelings about the carport a little bit, only because I know how many vehicles you need to accommodate, and having garage doors for all of those, as we would normally expect, may not be feasible. And I think it's a feature that's, for the large part, not seen from the street. However, as regards the rest of the architecture, which is where I have more of a concern, you've certainly come in the right direction by adding the tile roofs and raising the parapet height on the flat roofs. And I have no problem with the 9-foot ceiling height in the first floor and second floor where you have the flat roof. But especially looking at the east elevation, which is adjacent to a 2-story apartment building, I think it was categorized as, I think it's kind of out of scale with the adjacent property and with the house in the front. And that's because we apparently have a very tall plate height and volume ceilings. So I think it's making those buildings too tall, and I definitely think you need to look into whether or not the solar access ordinance applies. But also it's making for a very tall forehead of plaster above the windows that you have. And I think in general, there's kind of a rigidity and a regularity to your fenestration that I think you should free up a little bit more and make it more of a composition, especially looking at the west elevation. And I think Commissioner Drury was touching on this, is just this repetition of that one window in the middle. You've got a taller plate height, which maybe isn't going to stay that tall, but still you might have some variation in the height of the windows where you've got a taller plate height. Why not have a clear story over those windows, or a transom of some sort? The corner windows, if you were proposing to emulate more closely what's on page 9, the inspiration photo of that corner pop out, I could buy that, because, you know, I think it relates, the corner window idea relates it to the front house, and it's a detail that's more in keeping with EPV guidelines. We may not see many in the way of corner windows, and Irving Gill is not cited as an example of appropriate architecture for EPV, but I think this is something I could buy into, something like that. Also, as far as the wood siding, I think it's inappropriate to have the second floor masonry archetype supported on something that is clad in wood. It just is not credible for the style of architecture. And I think it also would be problematic if it were brick or stone and there wasn't a differentiation in the planes. So I think having those wood or whatever material it is and what's above be in the same plane is kind of problematic to deal with. And once again, in terms of looking at Irving Gill and looking at the Meridian Studios, you just don't see that kind of surface embellishment that you're introducing with the wood. And gee, when I walk around Meridian Studios, I sure don't say, I wish there was some warmer surface on the ground floor. So, you know, I think you need to work on the massing within the archetype that is prescribed in EPV, and work on the fenestration so it doesn't feel quite as rigid. Get the scale of the pitched roof elements down. I think that's all that I can remember that I had major issues with. So good luck.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner House. Other comments?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Drury?
So I agree with the previous comments, and I think when this first came to us, if I recall, the first iteration of this project was more amenable. I know this current iteration is much bigger, but there was something that was kind of coherent with what was being proposed, and I find that coherence almost entirely lacking with proposed today. And I would love to see what the first plans look like and see why they stick in my mind as being something that I would like to see more of. But maybe it's too far down the road. Thank you.
That's why they record all of our stuff, so you can go back and watch it.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Lendick?
Yeah, I think Mr. Drury is going to be confusing the applicant with that statement. For the original project that came in had a single building behind the original building. And we said with that little bit of additional work on the site that you could emulate the front building. And then when they came back with a much bigger project, tear down everything and put two new big buildings on there, we said we can't buy into emulating the front building any longer. You now have got to match EPV. So my concern is, Mr. Drury, is that you don't give them that impression that you found that a better piece of architecture the first time that they have mislaid here.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
I would hate to leave anybody astray.
Yeah, I think maybe, yeah, I think that's a good point, and that we do need to. It is a different project and a different proposal, and we want to keep building towards what we're the comments towards what we have been saying from before as well. So unless there's any additional comments, I'll summarize. And I think most of my comments were aligned with what has been said so far. And so so far the following comments, and actually if you can pull up the go to the elevations as the east and west elevation, sorry. yeah, because I think that most of it can be seen in this in these elevations. So so first to outline the pieces or the items that were seen to be an improvement, and I think in general most of the commissioners felt this, that using the use or the bringing into the project, into the design, the red tile roofs, and the mix of the flat roof and the flat plaster parapet roof with the red tile roof seems to be moving in the right direction, good moves, and in general the overall massing of those elements of the roof elements and portions seemed to be acceptable. The 9-foot ground floor seemed to, and the 9-foot parapet roof areas seem to be acceptable. The taller plate with the plaster above the windows in the second floor of the gable sections, in general, most of the commissioners felt it to be sort of too top heavy, or there's too much plaster above the windows, and so that was seen as generally. The other massing element was the parking garage, especially being not grounded as it was described, and too contemporary in terms of the overall massing especially on the west elevation. Let's see, the corner window treatments were also too contemporary. And the use of the horizontal wood as siding was also too contemporary and not EPV guideline. Let's see, there are key elements. Let's see. And I don't want to get too much into the weeds on little tiny elements, but I think that was the general gist. Oh, another comment was that the site plan needs to show the adjoining buildings, and I think it's going to be important. And I think we were trying to get at it in the previous comments, but I don't see the drawings or renderings showing this well enough yet. Is we need to understand the buildings in perspective more, or from the other adjacent views from across the street. I think there was a question about how much of the roof can we see from the street, and whether that's sidewalk or what, poking out over the top of the building too. So views, either perspective, views of perspective of across the street, I think is going to be important, and also maybe cross sections will help to show us as well, across from the site, from showing where the neighbor buildings are and how high they are.
So Mr. Chair, apologies for interrupting you, but I just wanted to let you know, it is not typical that we would allow an applicant to speak at this portion of the meeting. But if you're willing to allow the applicant to make any comments at this time, that's your discretion. I just wanted to put it out there.
Perfect, thank you. Let me finish the comments, and then we'll let the applicant have a short response. And also for any clarification that is needed. Another comment was, so a cross section through the site, showing adjoining building, showing adjacent buildings in the relationship, to understand the view impacts, and also the solar access was brought up as to study that and make sure that your solar access is going to be okay. And the impacts that it's going to have on the neighbors. And then I think that kind of that covers it for most of the comments. Am I missing any other comments that any commissioners wanted to make sure were put in?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Mahan?
Yeah, screening windows with metal shrouds or whatever whatever you would refer to those as. I don't believe that that's a traditional solution. There are, you know, there are ways to screen windows in El Pueblo Viejo. They need to be traditional.
Okay, so the window screening needs to be traditional, and the metal shrouds are not acceptable. Okay. Any other comments that I missed, commissioners? Okay. So now, with those comments, the applicant wants to respond in a short way or ask questions if certain things aren't clear.
Thank you so much, Chair and Commissioners. Look, I mean, I'll try to be as brief as I can. So obviously what we're dealing with is a project built today trying to look like an older project. And we understand that and we get that. And we've heard very specific comments framed around the front building and the then next additional buildings. And Commissioner Lindvik, I think it was, started to allude to this. And that's where we're getting a little bit stuck, and we seem to be getting different responses. And I just want to try to coalesce everybody around a direction. I mean, we're essentially asking for conceptual review. I mean, we came in here with really lightly drawn, sketched drawings that don't take a lot of effort and time and show all the detail, because we're trying to get, you know, in line with you guys and understand what it is that you will approve and accept. So in materiality of wood siding versus brick or stone, love to hear that all day long. I would, you know, a positive comment about the east elevation with the substitution of a different material for the horizontal boards, whether that be, I mean, we've been looking at the Ignacio house a lot in our office lately because of all the building that's going around it. That's a traditional clapboard house. It's NEPV. And we're not trying to match one style here. I mean, admittedly, we're stuck between a few, and we just want to get to a point where you guys at least feel comfortable to take us to the next step so we can really get into those other details. I mean, it would be great if the commission could say, okay, we approve you not to have 3 parking spaces to park for that front building since it's existing non-conforming, and thereby reduce our impact of carports. I mean, we don't love them, but it's a modern day requirement. And at 1 car per space, it's not too onerous, but as you can see with the site, it is what it is. And so if you want them garage, that's another component that we could easily listen to. Just say, hey, the carport doesn't work, put garage doors up there. And that would be a constructive way of dealing with the overall massing, but you can only go so far, right? I mean, the site's only so big and you got to fit a number of units on it. So, and I will say that the existing survey shows, page 4 of the document, shows the adjoining buildings. 1 building is literally on the property line, right next to our driveway. That would be the office building to the south. The 2-story apartment is also represented in its outline. This is as far as the survey went for this, because again, we're early on here. If you guys would like to know the measurement between the 2-story apartment to the east and our buildings, we're happy to provide that. But a visual photograph seems to be the most easy way to see what's really there.
Yeah,
None of which really.
Let me flesh some things out, because I think it'll help to help you to understand where I think what we're going to need and what we're going to need to be able to review it. So at the conceptual level, we're looking at especially massing in the bigger picture, right? So I totally get and we understand that, but we want to make sure that you're seeing that the horizontal siding, if you Photoshop that out and made it plaster in 2 seconds or whatever, that might actually take away a lot of those comments. But and that's in the weeds comment. But at least on the bigger picture level, we want to make sure that you're understanding that as a big brush strokes like materials, that they're going in the EPV guidelines, which is which is basically Mediterranean. We say Spanish, but there's a lot of range. So everything from the Meridian qualifies to that, to plenty of new stuff that's happening as well. It's just sort of that general language. There are a couple key points that I think you're going to need to answer or show us, and that are being hit on. So because we're on the survey, let me just start there. A key part of the big conceptual picture is us understanding the buildings next to it and how your building's interacting with it. So I think that that's going to be critical. The visuals that you provided for me, myself, and it seems like for the other commissioners, because they had, this was brought up, it's hard to understand exactly how your building's fitting in there. So it's one thing to show an aerial of a photo of it, but it's difficult to really imagine how that building is relating to the other buildings. So the fact that you have some corners of the survey there, if you need to be able to show us visually how those massings at the property line right next to you is going to be affecting your project and how it relates. Same thing on the other side. And so at least the properties around, how that's going to be impacting them just visually, and so that we understand it, and that commissioners can feel comfortable at the massing level with how your design works with the properties next to it as well. It's not the same as, well, anyways, I don't want to get into the weeds too much. So that's in terms of the siting and the massing. I think that's going to be really important that we understand. And yes, it's a conceptual level. Maybe it's a SketchUp model that you do a massing model of, just to show the general shapes and sizes of everything so that we can understand. And if we do have additional questions and concerns, we can raise them because we see it in the massing. And then the other comment of the, and this is important to understand, for example, the Ignacio house, there are plenty of buildings in the EPV that wouldn't qualify for, that wouldn't be in the stylistic category for new buildings that we require as the design district. So if they're existing non-conforming or historical of one style or another, a Victorian building doesn't fall into EPV guidelines for new construction. So the point that Commissioner Lenvik had made earlier is part of it, is that with the first project you had proposed, it was close enough that we were trying to make it work with and kind of get it simple enough to both work with the front house and at least to some degree work with the EPV guidelines. With this whole new project and these two projects really, or two buildings, it really just needs to fit within EPV guidelines. You might simplify it down, as you have been with the parapet walls, to forms that also work with the front building, but it's a difficult situation because you have the EPV guidelines to meet, but at the same time, you're also trying to get the building to talk nicely with the front building. So I think that's part of the struggle. I don't think us telling you put garage doors on or not, do this or that, will really solve those big picture issues, because you're also have the issues that were brought up are big picture massing issues. So it's not as simple as put garage doors on or things like that. And I think that it's going to just take working at the design, reworking or massaging the design to get it into an EPV type. So I hope that helps.
Mr. Chair,
I'll give you yes.
I just wanted to, I think you've alluded to this a little bit, but I just wanted to remind the commission and for the applicant's benefit, it's not just meeting the EPV guidelines. Our chapter 2222-104 required architectural styles requires buildings in EPV to be of a certain architectural style. So that's beyond just the guidelines that the HLC is going to be held to when they eventually have to approve the project. And I think they've made a lot of comments about that in their overall discussion portion of this project.
Yeah. So we'll wrap it up. Commissioner, I'll let you have one last little comment. Yeah.
Yeah, one last little comment that may be of benefit to the architect. If you look at your site plan, you in essence have single loaded parking. You're dragging asphalt all the way back to the very back of the property. And I think now that you're tearing down all the buildings, you no longer have to match the existing circulation pattern. I think if you were to stand back and look at your project, you might find a different parking arrangement that gives you a lot better way to put together a development on the site.
Okay.
Agreed.
Thank you, Commissioner Lenvik.
As long as it's understood that that would be more stories then, right? I mean, we're trying to stay within a 2-story to match the surroundings, but understood.
No, no, what you have to do is find a way to reconfigure the parking so that you're not putting as much asphalt on the property. Find a way to put the parking someplace that allows you to maybe consolidate your buildings, 2 stories. I think you can solve the problem. I just think you have accepted the original layout from the standpoint of drive and parking, and in essence, put your whole development in that box. And I think there are other ways that you can maybe develop this property. But I'm not the architect, and I'm not, you know.
Yeah, Commissioner Lennox, so I'll put that in as a comment in terms of, and perhaps, and consider looking at other circulation patterns for your parking as a way of possibly getting your more EPV traditional massing to work for the lower level. Because I think that's where that comment is tying to. It's the massing of the lower level, and it not being traditional to not carry the weight down and ground the building. So okay, so I think we've given enough comments. Is there anyone that wants to make a motion? Commissioner Uli?
I guess this requires a motion to continue indefinitely. We'll look for it to come back.
Okay, so
that motion.
Commissioner Mayhem, second? All right, under discussion.
With your comments that you've made.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
All right. All right. Any other discussion? All right, all those, or roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll begin the roll call vote. Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvik,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
Commissioner Mahan, I believe you're muted, Commissioner Mahan.
Pardon me? Yes.
Thank you. Chair Grumbine?
Yeah.
That is unanimous. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so Commissioner Drury, you get to get off before 5 even. Oh, and there's a cat. All right.
Oh my God.
There's a visitor.
Oh, geez.
There we go. Now it's going on to cat video.
Yep.
All right.
Man. All
See
right.
you all in 2.
All right, sounds good. All right, and so the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.